Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we'll be discovering something that floats quietly above our world, drifting, shimmering, and endlessly reshaping itself into gentle forms of wonder. Clouds, they move as if time itself has slowed, like the breath of the sky, soft and weightless, holding the secret rhythm of Earth's calmest dreams. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, just breathe. Let your shoulders fall, let your eyes grow heavy, and let the sound of my voice carry you upward toward the quiet edges of the sky. Clouds have always been more than weather. They are the language of stillness, written in vapor and light. Long before humans ever tried to name them, they were already painting across ancient skies, dancing in slow patterns of creation. When we look at a cloud, we are looking at the Earth's sigh, its moment of release. Each one is born from something invisible. Warm air rising, meeting cooler air above, and in that meeting, something tender happens. The air begins to hold water, tiny droplets gathering together, like thoughts becoming dreams. No one moment defines when a cloud begins. It simply appears, a quiet miracle of balance and breath. Imagine now, you are lying beneath an open sky at twilight. The air is cool against your skin, and high above, the first thin wisps of cirrus stretch, like whispers left behind by angels of wind. They curl and unfurl slowly, graceful and distant. These are the clouds that live where the air is thin and cold. So high, they never cast shadows, only glows of soft silver light. And as you breathe, you feel that same lightness moving within you. Lower in the sky, gentler clouds gather, fluffy and full, turning the sun's warmth into cotton-like comfort. Cumulus clouds, the ones we drew as children, round and simple and safe. Each one can weigh millions of pounds, and yet they float. Isn't that strange? That something so heavy can look so peaceful? Maybe it's a reminder that even what feels heavy in life can sometimes drift. If we let it, the sky is never the same twice. Every hour, every wind reshapes the stories above us. Some clouds fade in moments, while others linger for hours, layered and luminous, like thoughts we can almost touch. And in their slow motion, our own hearts find a rhythm, the kind that beats softly, without urgency. We look up, and for a brief moment, we remember what it feels like to simply exist, without needing to do anything at all. Night begins to fall. The colors melt from gold to lavender, then to that quiet indigo where the stars begin to hum. The clouds too change their voices. They darken, soften, and seem to drift slower, as if preparing, like us, for sleep. Somewhere far above, a faint glow still lingers, the last light of the day, resting on cirrus wings. And you breathe again, slow, deep, peaceful. You've traveled no distance, yet the sky feels closer now. Clouds are the gentle boundary between Earth and eternity. They rise from rivers and seas, then fall back again. The same water that once touched mountains, then drifted through air, and now rests upon your skin as rain. The same droplets over and over. Every cloud is part of a story much older than us, a story told through breath and patience. And tonight, as you listen, you become part of that story too. So for now, just close your eyes. Imagine the cool weight of air moving above you, the endless sky folding softly around your dreams. Let the world slow down, and when you're ready, we'll begin our journey deeper into the science and soul of clouds. If you enjoyed this beginning, stay with me for the next chapter, where we'll drift into the origins of clouds, their birth from warmth and wind, and the quiet secrets hidden in every wisp of white. For now, rest in the calm between breaths. Listen, do you hear that soft hum above the world? It's the quiet conversation between air and water, a dialogue that has been going on since the earth first learned how to breathe. Long before we gave them names, long before poets compared them to dreams, the clouds were already here, forming and dissolving, shaping the mood of the sky. They are the sky's handwriting, notes of vapor written in invisible ink that appear when the air cools just enough for water to whisper itself into being. Every cloud begins with a story. A single grain of dust, a tiny speck of salt carried from the ocean's sigh, or even the faint touch of pollen drifting from a tree. Around that particle, water gathers, molecule by molecule, until a delicate sphere of moisture blooms in the air. One drop becomes many, and those many weave themselves into the soft body of a cloud. This is not a violent birth. It is a patient one, born of stillness and balance, a quiet chemistry between heat and coolness, between motion and pause. If you could float within one, you'd find that a cloud is not solid at all. It's more like a living breath, suspended in midair. A cathedral made of mist, held together by the gentlest of physics. Scientists tell us that a single small cloud can contain thousands of tons of water, and yet it moves as gracefully as a sigh. How strange and beautiful that something so heavy can appear weightless. That's one of nature's quiet paradoxes, the art of seeming effortless while carrying the world's complexity within. Perhaps that's why looking at clouds brings peace, because they remind us that we too can hold much pressure and still appear calm. Over the oceans, warm air rises like a slow breath. It carries vapor with it, invisible at first, until the air cools and the invisible becomes visible. A shimmer, a veil, a bloom. This dance happens endlessly. Evaporation and condensation, the sky's heartbeat. And every pulse gives birth to another cloud. If you've ever lain on the grass and watched them drift by, you've seen the language of air itself. They move where the wind guides them, merge, break apart, and return again to nothing, like thoughts in the mind before sleep. The ancient Greeks thought clouds were the breath of the gods. In many Asian tales, they were the steps by which immortals climbed to heaven. And in every age, we've looked upward, trying to read meaning in their shapes. Maybe that's because clouds never stop changing. They remind us of impermanence, the truth that everything beautiful is always becoming something else. Even when you don't see them, they're there, waiting, hidden in the clear blue air. Tiny droplets, invisible but present, ready to gather again when the moment cools just right. So tonight, as you rest, Imagine yourself rising through the calm evening air. Below you, the earth fades to silver. Above, a slow wave of mist gathers under the moon. You float within it, weightless, surrounded by quiet. Each droplet catches the moonlight and returns it softly. A million tiny mirrors reflecting peace. If you listen closely, you might even hear the faint murmur of the water cycle itself. A rhythm older than life, steady as sleep, endless as dreaming. The clouds breathe in and breathe out, just as you do. And for a moment, you and the sky are made of the same thing. Since the first dawn of thought, human eyes have always been drawn upward. Before we built walls or cities, before we carved our names into stone, we were watchers of the sky. Somewhere, thousands of years ago, a hunter paused in a field, looked up, and saw a shape drifting quietly above him. He didn't have words for it yet, only the feeling that it was alive, that it meant something. The earliest people read the clouds as omens, as messages, as moods of the gods. In Mesopotamia, priests looked for patterns in the drifting vapor, believing that the gods spoke through their forms. A low, heavy sky meant warning, a pale, glowing one, perhaps favor. To the ancient Chinese, clouds were symbols of celestial harmony, bridges between heaven and earth. Painters brushed them into their scrolls as swirling ribbons of qi, the vital breath of the universe itself. In Japan, they were called kumo, and poets compared them to fleeting thoughts, the soul's reflections moving through time. The Greeks imagined the goddess Nephele, whose body was made of cloud and light. She was both real and illusion, a figure of mist who reminded them that not everything beautiful can be held. Even in the deserts of Arabia, travelers read the clouds as maps, guides to where rain might fall. For the people of every land, the clouds were not just decoration, they were prophecy, art, mystery, and hope. And still, that longing to understand persisted. When the age of observation began, humanity slowly traded myth for measurement, but never quite lost its sense of wonder. In the 17th century, the philosopher René Descartes wrote about halos and rainbows, how light bends through droplets suspended in air. He began to see that clouds were not divine fabric, but a tapestry woven by temperature, air, and water. Later, in the 18th century, a quiet, thoughtful man named Luke Howard stood by the River Thames and looked upward, just as countless dreamers had done before him. But Howard saw more than shapes. He saw patterns, categories, the architecture of vapor. He named them cumulus, the heaps; stratus, the layers; cirrus, the curls of hair; and nimbus, the bringers of rain. Simple Latin words, but they gave structure to the sky. For the first time in history, people could look up and agree on what they saw. Howard's system was not just scientific, it was poetic in its clarity, a vocabulary for beauty that had always been there. Goethe, the German poet, read Howard's work and was so moved that he wrote verses in reply. A scientist had spoken the language of clouds, and a poet had answered. Since then, our curiosity has never stopped. From balloons to satellites, we have chased the clouds higher and higher, wanting to see what they see. In the 20th century, scientists launched weather balloons, carrying instruments through mist and sunlight, measuring temperature, pressure, and wind. From their data, we learned how clouds form, move, and vanish. We learned that clouds are not only water, but also time itself made visible. Each one a brief equation of heat and humidity, a momentary expression of balance. And then came the satellites, eyes orbiting above the Earth, watching the slow breathing of the atmosphere. From that distance, the planet looks alive. Veins of white swirling over blue and green. The pulse of weather looping endlessly. Sometimes, those who work with these images say that it's like watching the Earth dream. Our curiosity has given us charts, data, and digital models. Yet when we stand beneath a sunset sky and see the clouds painted in rose and violet, all that knowledge feels small. Because science explains how they exist, but only stillness can show us why they move us. Perhaps curiosity was never about conquering mystery, but about becoming intimate with it. To understand clouds is to listen to their rhythm, their silence, their shape-shifting calm. It's to see how they gather, dissolve, and gather again, reminding us that even knowledge must breathe. So tonight, as you rest, imagine standing on a high hill, the wind soft against your face. The horizon is open and infinite. Above, the clouds drift in endless motion, each one a thought passing through the sky's mind. You don't need to name them now. Just watch. Let them move, and let your own thoughts move with them. Somewhere, Luke Howard might have stood just like this, head tilted, notebook in hand, trying to catch the feeling of the sky. Maybe, without knowing it, we're all still doing the same thing. We look up, and in the drifting clouds, we see a reflection of our own curiosity, our endless wish to understand what cannot be touched, only felt. The clouds drift on. The watchers below keep wondering, and the story between them never truly ends. Have you ever noticed how the world feels softer on a cloudy day? How light, when filtered through mist, seems to hum instead of shine, as if the day itself is whispering? Clouds are not only above us, they are within every breath we take. They are the air's memory of the sea, the sky's gentle way of carrying water home. Without them, there would be no rain, no rivers winding through green valleys, no oceans returning to themselves through endless cycles of vapor and fall. Every drop that touches your skin once drifted as cloud, perhaps over mountains, perhaps over the quiet shoulders of another world. Somewhere, a cloud once gathered itself above the Amazon, releasing its gift to the forest floor. That same water now rests in a leaf, or glides through a stream, or lingers in a sip of tea on your table tonight. You and the cloud, you share the same story of becoming. When scientists speak of the water cycle, they describe it in stages: evaporation, condensation, precipitation. But the truth feels simpler. It is just the earth breathing. Every forest exhales moisture upward, feeding the sky with invisible sighs. The clouds, like caretakers, catch those breaths, and one day return them as rain. In this rhythm, life learns to endure. The rice fields wait patiently for the monsoon's gray promise. The desert opens its cracked palms when a thin wisp of cloud dares to appear. And the polar bear, in its white kingdom of silence, lives under skies of frozen vapor, proof that even cold can make beauty rise. Clouds regulate temperature, They reflect sunlight by day, hold warmth by night. Without their quiet guardianship, the earth would burn and freeze in wild swings. They are the planet's blanket, woven from nothing but balance, and they speak to us in so many shapes. The towering cumulus, bold and rising, full of strength, signals summer's passion. The thin cirrus, delicate, high, and curled like hair, moves like the thought of wind itself. And the low stratus, a patient gray veil, brings the hush that makes cities slow down. You've seen how people react to clouds. When the sky darkens, we grow quieter. When the first drop falls, children laugh, lovers run, and the world remembers its softness. Even animals listen. Birds sense pressure change long before we do, folding wings early before storms come. Flowers turn their faces inward, as if to rest under the muted light. And bees, they hurry home. In the mountains, clouds cling to cliffs, carrying moisture that feeds mosses and orchids too shy for sunlight. In the open ocean, their shadows drift across blue miles, guiding migrating whales and cooling the waves below. In the desert, thin streaks of cirrus paint hope across the horizon, a promise of rain that may come or may not, but is beautiful nonetheless. Everything listens to clouds. Even the soil waits, quiet and open, for the sound of distant thunder. And within that waiting, there is peace. Because clouds remind us that nourishment often arrives unseen. You don't always hear it coming. Sometimes it begins as a thin mist, a single drop, a breath. Even our moods respond to their quiet choreography. On bright days, clouds soften the sharpness of sunlight. On gray days, they draw us inward, into slower thoughts, deeper silences. Psychologists once found that people feel calmer near moving clouds, as if the sight of drifting shapes relaxes the body's rhythm. Perhaps because clouds mirror the pace of breathing, rising, swelling, releasing, dissolving. Some artists say that clouds are nature's most honest painters. They never repeat themselves, never pretend permanence, and yet they shape every landscape with light. When Monet painted the sky, he said he wasn't painting clouds. He was painting time. That's what clouds do. They reveal the invisible passing of moments, the slow unfolding of day into dusk, the hush of twilight before rain begins to fall. And still, we find ourselves looking upward. Even in cities of glass and smoke, we pause to watch the ceiling of the world move. In that pause, the noise quiets. We remember that we live on a planet of motion and mist, and that every breath we take is part of that same circulation of life. So tonight, before sleep, if you step outside or stand by a window, watch the slow drift of clouds across the moon. Notice how the light bends around them, how it softens everything it touches. Feel how your shoulders loosen, how your breath matches the rhythm of that movement. The sky is caring for you, just as it cares for rivers, forests, and oceans. Each cloud carries the same calm intention: to give, to shade, to soothe, to remind us that the world, too, knows how to rest. And as you drift toward dreams, remember that somewhere above, a new cloud is forming, quietly, beautifully, preparing its gentle gift for tomorrow. When you look long enough at the sky, you begin to sense that clouds are thinking, not in words, perhaps, but in motion, in silence, in the slow choreography of drifting forms. They never stay still, and yet within their movement, there are patterns older than memory. If you've ever watched clouds gather before a storm, you might have felt it. That hush before the first drop falls, that invisible architecture of energy forming above. The sky knows before we do. It hums with quiet electricity, with tension so soft it feels like holding your breath. Scientists call it convection, the rise and fall of warm and cool air. But poets might call it longing, the way opposites reach for each other, the way the world creates harmony out of difference. In every thunderhead, there's both destruction and creation. Lightning splits the sky open, but in that flash, new nitrogen forms, feeding the soil that grows our food. Even the storm, it seems, is an act of care. If you've ever seen a sky full of mammatus clouds, those strange rounded shapes hanging like lanterns beneath a storm, you might have felt a chill of awe. They look like the fingerprints of the wind, the marks of something vast and unseen passing through. No pattern in a cloud is random. Every curve, every swirl, every wisp is the visible trace of air meeting heat, of gravity and sunlight performing their quiet duet. From a satellite's view, the Earth wears these patterns like art. Spirals over the ocean, sheets over the poles, ribbons stretching along the equator. It is as though the planet is painting itself anew each day. And yet, even with all our instruments and algorithms, we cannot fully predict them. No two clouds are ever the same. They resist repetition. They live only once, and then dissolve, leaving no trace but the memory of light. Maybe that's what makes them sacred. In the gentle chaos of vapor, there is a lesson that beauty does not need permanence to matter, that existence can be soft, brief, and still meaningful. Some say they see faces in clouds, or animals, or cities floating on invisible seas. Children see dragons and ships. Dreamers see signs. Perhaps clouds are mirrors, shifting to reflect whatever our hearts wish to see. In ancient times, people called this pareidolia, the human tendency to find shapes in randomness. But maybe it's more than that. Maybe the sky is simply kind enough to meet us halfway. At twilight, when clouds catch the last light of day, the atmosphere becomes a canvas of fire and blush. The colors rose, amber, violet, are born from scattering light through droplets. Physics explains it clearly, but the heart still feels wonder, because in that moment, you see the sky remembering every sunset before, every warm goodbye between day and night. Sometimes, clouds move in long, even lines. Altocumulus waves stretching from horizon to horizon. They echo the patterns of the ocean below, as though air and water are speaking in the same rhythm. And in polar regions, rare clouds shimmer with rainbow colors, iridescent nacreous veils that appear just before dawn. They are made of ice crystals, high and thin, catching sunlight from beyond the curve of the earth. They look unreal, like something seen only in dreams. Astronauts who've seen them from above often say they feel as though they're floating through thought itself. No sound, no up or down, only color and calm. These are the hidden patterns, not meant to be solved, but to be felt. If you stand under a sky filled with layered clouds, You can sense the movement even without wind on your skin. A rhythm beneath sight, like the earth breathing, and you breathing with it. Perhaps the mystery of clouds is not that they change, but that they teach us how to. They let go constantly, without resistance, without regret. They merge, transform, disappear, only to return again in another form. In that endless cycle, there is wisdom older than any scripture, a reminder that impermanence is not loss. It is simply the shape of life moving forward. So, as you listen now, let the rhythm of your breath mirror theirs. Rise, pause, fall, and rest. The same forces that move the clouds move through you. The same light that paints their edges dwells quietly within your eyes. And maybe, in this moment, between waking and sleep, you can feel it. The vastness of sky and soul, touching, becoming one soft, shared horizon. Sometimes, when we look at the sky, we're not really looking at clouds. We're looking at the reflection of our own thoughts, gathering, changing, dissolving, and becoming light again. Clouds are teachers of impermanence. They show us that beauty doesn't need to last forever to be real. A cirrus strand brushed across the morning, a single puff of cumulus drifting above the sea. They come, they go, and yet their passing is what makes the sky alive. If we watch them long enough, we start to notice how they mirror the quiet rhythm of the mind. Thoughts rise like vapor, warm and full of motion, then cool, condense, and fade into stillness again. And just like the atmosphere, our inner weather is always shifting, sometimes bright and open, sometimes heavy with the promise of rain. In every tradition, from poets of the East to dreamers of the West, clouds have carried meaning. In Japan, they were symbols of the fleeting world. In Greek myth, they were the veils of the gods. And in countless prayers, whispered beneath wide skies, people have looked upward for signs, for messages written in mist and motion. But perhaps the real message is this: that transience itself is sacred, that letting go is not a loss, but a way of making room for light to return. So the next time you see a drifting cloud, pause for a moment. Let your gaze soften. Feel how it moves. Slowly, without hurry. Just as breath moves through your body. Inhale the softness of the sky. Exhale the weight of the day. Let everything that's unsettled inside you float for a while and find its own shape. Science tells us that a cloud is simply water suspended between earth and air. But perhaps it's also a reminder that we too live in that same in-between. Between what has been and what will be, between holding on and letting go. A raindrop's journey begins as vapor, invisible, weightless. It gathers into a cloud, becomes visible, then falls, and is gone, only to rise again when the sun calls it upward. This endless cycle, evaporation, condensation, rain, is the pulse of the planet. And in some quiet way, it's the pulse of our own lives too. Each time we grow, release, rest, and begin again, we are mirroring the sky. We are weather, shifting, shining, and returning to calm. So maybe that's what clouds teach us most of all: to be gentle with change, to float through uncertainty, to understand that even in moments of gray, there is light waiting to shine through. When you close your eyes tonight, imagine those slow, endless formations drifting above. Let them remind you that nothing stays heavy forever. Every storm eventually breaks into light. Every cloud eventually opens to the stars. Pause. Let the thoughts settle like mist, soft, weightless, and kind. Because even as the world sleeps, the sky keeps breathing for us all. There comes a point in every quiet night when thought begins to fade and the world feels lighter, as if the air itself has loosened its hold on time. If you listen closely now, you can almost hear the hush of the sky. Clouds above, dimly silvered by moonlight, move with the grace of slow breathing. No destination, no hurry. Just an endless dance between stillness and motion. Imagine yourself floating among them, not standing below, but drifting within. The ground far beneath, the stars far above, and you, somewhere in between. The air here is cool, almost soft to the touch. It hums with the gentle pulse of the earth's rhythm. Each inhalation feels like the sky itself expanding, each exhalation like a small surrender. For a while, there is no story to remember, no list to complete, no sound except your own steady breath, mingling with the slow murmur of the wind. This is the cloud's secret. It doesn't resist. It doesn't cling. It simply moves, reshaping with every whisper of air, content to exist only for this moment. If you've ever watched clouds from a plane window, you might remember that strange, tender illusion of walking across something that cannot hold you, yet somehow makes you feel safe. Soft ridges of white, curling into valleys of shadow, as if the sky had turned to silk. Let yourself rest in that feeling now, weightless, untethered, free from gravity and thought. You can see the faint shimmer of moonlight, spilling over the cloud tops, painting silver where moments ago there was gray. This is what peace looks like when it takes form. Not empty but vast, not silent but deeply still. Down below, the world sleeps. Forests breathing in slow rhythm, oceans rising and falling, cities glowing faintly like embers under glass. And above it all, the clouds keep their vigil. Soft, luminous, drifting in patient procession. Maybe you begin to sense it, how everything is connected, how each breath you take is shared with trees, with oceans, with clouds that cradle rain and let it fall again. Every inhale you draw might once have passed through a mountain mist, a storm at sea, a quiet dawn above a distant shore. We are not separate from the sky. We are made of the same vapor, the same moving miracle of water and light. Now, as you drift deeper, the boundaries begin to blur. You are the sky. You are the stillness between each heartbeat. You are the quiet that lives inside the cloud. Let your thoughts dissolve like morning mist. Let your breath become wide and slow. And if a memory drifts through, don't chase it, don't hold it. Just let it pass. Like vapor, returning to the open air. Soon, the sound of the world grows soft. A faint hum of wind through the upper currents, the almost music of peace. You can feel sleep approaching now, like a gentle tide reaching the shore. Don't resist it, let it carry you. Let yourself float toward that endless horizon, where sky and dream become one. Somewhere beyond this moment, the first light of morning is already forming, gold gathering behind the dark. But there is no need to rush toward it. Night still holds you. The clouds still cradle you. And for now, that's enough. Pause, drift, breathe, rest, and remember, you are part of the quiet sky. There is a silence that comes after wonder, the kind that doesn't ask for words, only breath. Tonight, you have drifted through the sky, floated with the clouds, listened to their stories of light and impermanence. And now, you have come to rest. In the space between thought and dream, look around in your mind's eye. There is no weight here, no edge or border, only softness, a boundless calm stretching in every direction. The clouds are still with you. They move slowly across the vastness, their edges glowing faintly with the memory of moonlight. Each one a quiet companion, keeping watch as the world sleeps. The night is not empty. It hums gently, like the low sound of the earth breathing. Distant stars shimmer through the thin veil of vapor, each one a reminder that even in stillness, the universe continues its patient motion. If you listen closely now, you can almost hear your heartbeat, matching that rhythm. Slow, deep, at peace. The journey has brought you here, not to an ending, but to a resting place, a space where you don't need to reach or think, only to be. Breathe in, feel the cool, wide air filling your chest. Breathe out, feel the soft release, like mist fading in early dawn. The sky changes, the clouds come and go, but peace remains. It lingers quietly beneath everything, like the still air between the stars. And when you open your eyes again, hours from now, perhaps you'll remember how even the most fleeting things can hold eternity within them. Maybe you'll notice the morning light, touching the edge of your window, soft as a cloud's whisper. Maybe the world will seem gentler, a little slower, a little kinder. Because once you've floated with the clouds, it's hard not to carry a piece of their calm inside you. So now, let the sound of your breath blend with the quiet hum of night. Let your thoughts drift farther away until they're only ripples on a still pond. You have reached the horizon of wakefulness. There's nothing more to see, and yet everything is here. Rest now. In the arms of the sky, the clouds will keep their silent watch. The stars will stay until dawn, and the world will wait for you when you return. Good night and sweet dreams. And now let's get to the most relaxing facts about mountains that will bring peace to your night. Take a slow breath in. Feel the air settle softly in your chest. And as you exhale, imagine the cool whisper of wind gliding along distant ridges. Mountains, those ancient sentinels, rise where the earth folds in on itself, pressing rock against rock until the world begins to lift. They've watched the turning of ages, stood through storms, dawns, and endless skies. In their silence, they have seen everything and needed nothing. If you close your eyes now, you might see them, their outlines blue and gentle against the fading light, the last warmth of the sun spilling like honey over the slopes. the air growing thin and still. Perhaps a bird glides across the horizon, a single dark brushstroke in the pale gold sky. Or maybe far below, a river murmurs softly, its song born from the snow that melts at the mountain's crown. Mountains hold the memories of the earth, each layer a quiet page in the planet's diary. Long before cities breathed light into the dark, they were there, shaping weather, guiding rivers, calling clouds. Even now, they continue their patient work, carving and crumbling, shifting ever so slightly with time. And yet, they never hurry. They rise and fall in a rhythm too slow for us to see. A rhythm that reminds us how small our worries are, how fleeting our noise can be. As night folds over the landscape, a soft mist gathers at the foothills. The world seems to hush itself. Listen, do you hear it? That faint echo of stillness, like the earth is breathing beneath you. Here, in this quiet hour, let your thoughts become light as air. Let the day slide gently from your shoulders. You're safe now, surrounded by peaks that have stood longer than memory. They do not ask anything of you. They only stand calm, steady, eternal. So for now, just rest. Feel the weight of the mountain beneath your imagination. Solid, unmoving, yet full of slow life. And when your mind drifts between wakefulness and dream, may you find yourself walking along those ancient paths, where clouds kiss the stones and time moves like a sigh. Because tonight, you're not here to climb. You're here to be still, to listen, to breathe. Welcome to the mountains. If you listen closely, the earth has a heartbeat. It is slow, steady, ancient beyond imagining. Each throb of that deep pulse shapes the world above it, lifting stone and folding valleys, until a mountain is born. Once, there was no peak to touch the clouds. The earth's skin was smooth and restless, its surface whispering, stretching, sighing beneath a heavy sky. But inside, the planet was alive. Heat churned in dark chambers. Currents of molten rock flowed like thoughts beneath a calm face. And one day, over ages so vast, the human mind can barely touch them, those hidden forces began to move. The earth breathed, and in that breath, continents drifted quietly, slowly, colliding in a slow-motion embrace that lasted millions of years. Where they met, the ground wrinkled and lifted. Rock pressed against rock, and the first mountain reached toward the Sunday. Imagine that moment. Not a single sound, only pressure and time. No witness, no hurry. Just the planet sculpting itself in silence. What we now call the Himalayas, those shimmering giants, were once the floor of an ancient sea. Shells and sand rested there, until two great pieces of earth began to move toward each other, like lovers drawn by gravity and fate. When they finally met, the seafloor rose skyward, and coral became cliffs, and water became snow. Even now, those peaks are still growing, an inch or two each year, as if the world still remembers how to dream upward. Mountains are born in fire and pressure, but they live in patience. They erode grain by grain, washed by rain, carved by wind, each moment smoothing their jagged skin, until they rest again in quiet humility. They remind us that strength can come from slowness and beauty from surrender. Some mountains rise from volcanoes, a different kind of birth. Deep beneath the crust, magma gathers like a held breath until the earth exhales and fire blooms through stone. Layer after layer, eruption after eruption, a cone of cooled rock forms, rising higher each time the planet sighs. That is how islands are born in the middle of oceans, how Hawaii stands crowned in green and mist. Even the quietest volcano, long asleep, still hums faintly within. A whisper of warmth, a memory of creation itself. There are mountains under the sea too, taller than anything we see on land. They sleep in darkness, their peaks brushing the edges of the ocean's heart. Some cradle entire ecosystems that never see the sun, creatures that glow like small lanterns, flowers of glass and bone drifting through cold water. Even in the deepest dark, the world builds upward. When we see mountains from afar, they seem eternal, unchanging. But the truth is, they are always moving, so slowly that only the stars and time can see it. The ground beneath your feet is a story in motion, a grand, quiet choreography of rise and rest, creation and decay. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the pulse of it. Imagine the world not as static and still, but breathing beneath you. Every ridge, every valley, each one a ripple in the great exhale of time. And yet, for all their power, mountains are tender too. They cradle clouds, they collect the first drops of morning rain. They give birth to rivers, which carry snowmelt down to the waiting plains. They hold forests like secrets and hide glacial lakes that shimmer in forgotten light. Think of how water begins as mist, rising, drifting, and cooling, then falling again upon those patient peaks. Each cycle, endless and calm, feeds the mountain's quiet heart. The earth gives and takes back in perfect rhythm. In winter, mountains sleep beneath white silence. Their slopes are wrapped in cold breath, and the world above them slows. In spring, they awaken, green veins spreading across their flanks, streams unlocking their frozen songs. In summer, they stand tall and golden, their outlines trembling in the heat. And by autumn, they rest again, a circle complete, a lesson in balance and letting go. To understand mountains is to understand time itself. They live not in hours or days, but in millennia. They teach patience by simply existing. They remind us that even the smallest grain of sand once belonged to a summit, and that every fall is just another beginning. The origin of mountains is not only a tale of geology, it's a meditation on endurance. It's the story of how chaos becomes calm, how pressure becomes grace. The planet folds, strains, and cracks, and out of that tension, beauty rises. Perhaps that's why we find peace when we look at them, because somewhere in our bones, we recognize the same process within ourselves. We, too, are shaped by pressure. We, too, rise slowly, becoming smoother, quieter, more grounded with time. And if you listen, if you truly listen, you might hear that low hum again, the same one that began it all, the Earth's first slow heartbeat. It's still there, echoing through the stone, beneath forests, under rivers, and within every mountain on this blue planet. So tonight, as you rest, imagine yourself lying upon that heartbeat. Feel the steady warmth beneath the soil, the slow pulse of creation. It does not rush. It does not worry. It simply is. And perhaps that is the quiet secret of the mountains. They rise not to reach the heavens, but to remind us that peace is found in stillness, in the spaces between breaths, in the patience of the earth, in the soft rhythm of becoming. The next time you see a distant peak or a cloud brushing against its crest, remember, you are looking at the ancient breath of the world itself, a living sculpture born of fire, tempered by time, and softened by the passing of seasons. Breathe with it now, slowly, deeply, and let that calm settle into you. For as long as mountains stand, so will the peace they bring. Have you ever wondered how long humans have been gazing at mountains and asking themselves what secrets they keep? Since the earliest dawns of civilization, people have looked up to those vast, unmoving silhouettes and felt both fear and wonder. In the cradle of the Himalayas, ancient travelers once believed the peaks were the resting places of gods. They built temples not to reach the heavens, but to honor the mountains that already touched them. In Greece, they said Zeus ruled from Mount Olympus, his thunder echoing through the valleys like a heartbeat of the sky. In Japan, Mount Fuji stood as a sacred mirror, reflecting the soul of a nation in its snow-capped calm. Every culture, every tongue, has whispered to the mountains as if they could hear, and perhaps, in some way, they do. When humans first tried to understand what mountains were, they used stories. Stories of giants turned to stone, stories of sleeping dragons, of buried treasure, of gods who shaped the earth with their hands. But then came another kind of curiosity, one that looked not with the heart, but with the eye of reason. Centuries later, in quiet, candlelit rooms, thinkers began to ask, what if mountains are not eternal at all? What if they grow and crumble, just as we do? It was a thought that changed everything. In the 17th century, as sailors mapped the oceans, a few wanderers turned their maps inland, toward the high places. They carried no weapons, only notebooks, no flags, only questions. One of them was a man named Nicolas Desmarest, a French geologist who looked at the strange black cliffs of Auvergne and realized they were once rivers of fire, frozen mid-flow. It was the first whisper of what we now call volcanoes. And in the Swiss Alps, Horace Benedict de Saussure stood at the base of Mont Blanc, marveling at its majesty. He did not want to conquer it, only to understand it. He built barometers and thermometers and sent them higher than anyone had dared. He measured not the mountain's height, but its heartbeat. Then came the explorers, the poets, the dreamers. They wrote of mountains as if they were alive. John Muir once said, "The mountains are calling and I must go." He wandered through the Sierra Nevada, his journal filled with wonder instead of conquest. Each rock, each pine, each whisper of wind became part of his prayer. And through his words, the world learned something profound, that mountains are not obstacles, but teachers. Have you ever stood before a mountain and felt the strange urge to breathe deeper? That is no coincidence. At high altitudes, the air grows thin, and your lungs must reach further, draw stronger, to hold on to life. But in doing so, you feel it. The raw, steady rhythm of existence itself. For thousands of years, people have climbed mountains for reasons science cannot measure. Not for gold, not for glory, but for the silence that waits at the top. In the Himalayas, Sherpa people have lived among the clouds for centuries. To them, Everest is not a conquest, but a goddess, a mother called Chomolungma. They walk with reverence, their steps careful and slow, as if each footprint might wake the mountain spirit. And when climbers from faraway lands came, the Sherpas taught them how to breathe, how to listen, how to bow their heads before the storm. Because on the mountain, humility is not a choice. It is survival. Over time, our curiosity reached deeper. Scientists began to see mountains not as static monuments, but as living records of the Earth's restless heart. Every fold, every ridge, every fossil embedded in the stone was a page in a story billions of years old. They discovered that mountains rise when continents collide, that they crumble when rain and wind wear away their pride. A dance of creation and decay, as ancient as the planet itself. And still, we keep looking up. There is a quiet poetry in the tools we use to study mountains. Satellites orbit far above, sending back images so detailed that we can see glaciers breathe, expanding in winter, retreating in summer. Seismographs tremble faintly, recording the size of distant peaks. As they shift, inch by inch, even the snow speaks, its layers telling us of winters long gone. To listen to a mountain is to listen to time itself. But beyond all the instruments and maps, something older remains. The human need to belong to something greater than ourselves. When Edmund, Hillary, and Tenzing Norgay stood atop Everest in 1953, they did not declare victory. They stood in silence. Above them only the curve of the earth. Below them everything humanity had ever known. It was not triumph. It was communion. Even now, climbers return to those frozen heights, not to conquer them, but to feel small again. Because there is peace in realizing how tiny we are and how vast the world still is. Every mountain is a reminder that the earth is alive, that we are travelers, not owners. And as we trace its ridges and valleys, we are tracing the outlines of our own curiosity, our need to understand, to explore, to feel awe. So tonight, as you listen to this quiet story, imagine standing before a mountain. The air is cool, the stars are close, and somewhere in the distance, you hear a slow rumble, the earth turning in its sleep. Perhaps you'll think of those who came before you, the monks who prayed, the poets who wrote, the scientists who measured the unmeasurable. Each of them looked up and found something that changed them. You and I, we are part of that same ancient gaze. Let's take a deep breath and remember that even the tallest mountains were once soft seabeds, pressed by time into stone. Nothing begins as grand as it becomes. Not mountains, not us. And that realization that we too are still forming. might be the most beautiful truth of all. And now, let's rest in this quiet understanding that curiosity is not noise. It is the soft wind that keeps the world awake. And when we look at the mountains, we are not just observing them. We are listening to the oldest story ever told, the earth dreaming itself into being. Let's stay here a little longer, among the peaks of thought and stillness, and breathe high above the valleys, where clouds drift slowly like wandering dreams. The mountains stand quietly, shaping everything that breathes below. We often think of them as distant, eternal, unmoving. Yet every ripple of air, every stream that trickles through the forest, carries their silent touch. The mountains are not just stone, they are the lungs of the earth. They breathe through their forests, exhale through their rivers, and whisper through the wind that sweeps down their slopes. When rain falls upon their ridges, it begins a long, patient journey, gathering in trickles, merging into streams, until, far below, it becomes the river that gives life to valleys and plains. Every sip of water we take might once have slept in the shadow of a mountain. The mountains create weather quietly, steadily. As warm air rises along their sides, it cools, condenses, and falls as rain or snow. Without mountains, many lands would be deserts, silent and bare. But because they stand tall, the skies learn to weep, the rivers learn to run, and the fields learn to grow green again. There's a kind of poetry in how they do it. No rush, no sound, just the slow patience of rock, meeting wind of time brushing against eternity. And from that patience, life is born. In the forests of the Andes, clouds cling to moss-covered trees, moisture-feeding orchids, vines, and hummingbirds that shimmer like tiny jewels. In the Himalayas, the meltwater from glaciers trickles down into the Ganges, nurturing millions of lives across the plains. In the Rockies, snow feeds streams that cross pine valleys, home to elk and eagles. Everywhere, mountains are quiet givers, feeding, sheltering, protecting, and yet they ask for nothing in return. They rise from the earth's heart and simply give. If you stand at their base and look up, it's easy to feel small. But that smallness isn't frightening, it's humbling. It reminds us of how everything is connected, how even the smallest breath we take is part of a larger rhythm. The wind you feel on your cheek may have been born in the cold of a mountain dawn. The rain that touches your window may have once slept upon a snowy peak. And the soil that feeds the roots beneath your feet, yes, that too was once part of a mountain's slow crumble into life. When you look closely, mountains are storytellers. They keep a record of time, not in ink or words, but in layers of stone, in fossils pressed deep within their bones. Every ridge, every fold tells of ancient seas, shifting plates, fire and frost. If you could listen closely enough, perhaps you'd hear them sigh, a deep, slow breath that began long before humans learned to speak. And even now, life listens to them. Birds nest in their cliffs. Mosses trace their veins. Snow leopards walk their ridges like silent guardians of the wind. From the tiniest alpine flower to the tallest pine, each life bends to the rhythm of the mountain's song. There's a reason so many people seek peace in the mountains. It's not just the view, it's the stillness. It's the way the world feels larger up there, and yet somehow gentler. It's the silence that hums like a heartbeat beneath everything else. Somewhere deep inside, we know what the mountains know. that life is not about speed, but about stillness. That strength is not noise, but quiet endurance. That growth is slow, but sure. If you were to sit at the edge of a mountain lake, watching the clouds drift across its mirrored surface, you might notice how time begins to soften. How the air moves differently up here, thinner, clearer, almost sacred. The sound of a distant bird becomes a melody. The wind across the pines becomes a lullaby. And even your heartbeat seems to slow to match the rhythm of the mountain itself. Mountains remind us to breathe deeper, to take less, and to feel more. They teach us that the world doesn't need to rush to be alive. Everything unfolds quietly, patiently, perfectly, just as it should. Even when storms roll through, the mountains do not resist. They let the wind roar, the rain fall, the snow bury their peaks. And when it's over, they remain unchanged, unshaken, serene. That, perhaps, is their greatest gift to us. A reminder that peace is not the absence of storms, but the ability to stand still within them. And now, as night drapes itself across the ridges, the mountains fade into soft silhouettes. The stars settle above their crowns like ancient embers. The rivers below murmur their endless gratitude. And in the hush between breaths, you can almost hear the earth whisper, "Thank you." Night settles quietly over the mountains. Moonlight spills across the ridges, and the stars above seem to whisper to the ancient stones below. If you stand still long enough and listen with the patience of silence, you might begin to see that everything in these mountains moves according to an unseen order. Not chaos, but choreography. Not random, but rhythm. The world here breathes in patterns, woven by wind, carved by rain, and shaped by time, the invisible sculptor of all things. Let your mind drift slowly over the curves of the land. From a distance, the ranges look like frozen waves, caught in mid-motion, forever holding their breath. Some say that nature has its own language, and mountains are among its oldest words. Every ridge, every fracture in the rock, is a line in that ancient poem, a script of patience and quiet creation. You don't have to translate it. You only have to feel it. Geologists once noticed something wondrous, that from the sky, mountain ranges branch out, like veins beneath skin, or like the neural paths of a vast dreaming mind. Perhaps that's why we feel calm when we look at them, because somewhere deep within, our bodies recognize this pattern. Mountains and humans, both built upon repetition and rhythm, both following the same geometry of existence. We are not separate. We are reflections of the same design. Look carefully, and you'll see that the horizon is never truly straight. It rises and falls like the heartbeat of the planet. And each time the wind passes through, the mountains answer with a hum so low, you feel it more than you hear it. Scientists call it infrasound, a sound too deep for the human ear, yet somehow the body listens. That might be why you feel peace here, in the stillness between stones. You are hearing the earth in another language, one that doesn't use words. In Tibetan belief, mountains are not just landforms. They are living presences, the quiet homes of ancient spirits. Pilgrims walk in silence around Mount Kailash, not to reach its summit, but to remember humility and the smallness that connects us to all things. They call the mountains witnesses of impermanence. All things come and go, but the mountain remains. Under moonlight, the mountains take on another face. Not majestic, but meditative. By day, they speak in shapes and light. By night, they whisper in shadow and silence. It is said that when the wind slips through narrow valleys, the air itself becomes an instrument. Rocks form echo chambers, and the world plays its own forgotten symphony. The wind, the musician, the stone, the hall, and time itself, the eternal composer. Each layer of rock stacked upon the last is time made visible. Every line, every grain, a moment once alive. Mountains teach us that nothing beautiful is born in haste. That strength is simply patience made solid. There is another secret, hidden in snow and ice. Under the microscope, no two snowflakes are ever the same, yet all share the same six-fold symmetry. No matter where they fall, or how often they melt, they return to that perfect geometry. It's as if chaos always bows to the quiet order beneath it. And maybe that's what the mountains remind us, that even in stillness, there is design. Even in randomness, there is grace. If you look long enough at a distant peak, you'll see clouds forming gently around it. But it's not the mountain hiding under the clouds. It's the mountain creating them. As moist air rises and cools, it condenses and forms that soft white veil. A quiet act of physics that feels almost like art. It's as though the earth has placed a shawl around her own shoulders, a gesture both protective and proud. In Japan, there's a word, eugeneral. It means a beauty so profound, it cannot be expressed in words. When you stand before a mountain, that's what you feel. Not awe, but recognition. As if some sleeping part of you finally opens its eyes. The greatest truths are the ones that stay silent. If you sit down, place your hand on the cool earth and wait. You may feel something subtle beneath you. Not movement, exactly, but breath. The earth is always shifting, slowly, patiently, like a giant creature lost in a dream. Mountains are its dreams, solidified. And they keep dreaming, even now. At dawn, when mist fills the valleys, the mountains disappear. But you know they're still there, quiet, unchanged, waiting for the light to return. It's a reminder that what's hidden isn't gone, that even behind the clouds, stillness endures. Scientists speak of fractal patterns, shapes that repeat themselves, from the tiniest leaf vein to the tallest ridgeline. The same mathematics, echoing across scales. The veins of a leaf mirror a river delta. A river's branches mirror the slopes of a mountain. Everything is a reflection of everything else. The universe writes all things in one language of pattern and proportion. When you gaze at a mountain, you're reading the same sentence, written across the stars, and sometimes we think we are small beside them. But that's not quite true. Every breath we take is the mountain breathing with us. Every heartbeat, a soft echo in its sleeping core. The mountain is not outside you, it's within you. It gives your mind its stillness and your heart its strength. And when the night folds itself once more around the peaks, When all sounds fade into hush, the mountains lie still, as if meditating. You close your eyes, and your dreams begin to echo their quiet rhythm, because somewhere inside that silence, the mountain continues to hum, and your soul hums back. There comes a moment when, standing before a mountain, you realize you are not there to conquer it. You are there to remember what it means to be still. Mountains have a way of teaching without words. They do not lecture, they do not rush. They simply exist, and in their existence, they reveal truths that cannot be found in books or spoken aloud. When you look up at a towering ridge, touching the soft edge of the clouds, you might feel that quiet voice inside. Whisper, slow down, breathe. There is nowhere else you need to be. In that silence, you begin to understand what the mountain knows. That strength is not loud. That endurance does not demand attention. It is steady, unshaken, like the heart of the earth itself. The mountain endures storms. It wears the scars of wind and rain, of glaciers long melted, of fires that once burned bright and vanished into ash. And yet, it remains. What does it teach us? That patience can shape the impossible. That even the tallest peaks began as dust and silence. That everything grand begins small, and that time is the most gentle sculptor of all. When we move too fast, life becomes a blur. But the mountains remind us to move at the pace of stone, to let moments settle like snow upon the soul, to listen to the rhythm of stillness. Instead of the noise of hurry, there is wisdom in their immobility. A reminder that growth is not always about motion. Sometimes it is about waiting. Sometimes it is about trusting the slow work of change unseen. The monks of the Himalayas once said that when you meditate among the peaks, your thoughts fall away like loose stones, until all that remains is the quiet sound of your own being. It's easy to forget that in our world now, a world that moves faster every day, but the mountains don't move. They are patient with time, and in their patience, they teach us how to be gentle with ourselves. Have you ever noticed how a mountain looks different each hour of the day? At dawn, it blushes gold and rose. At noon, it stands clear and certain. And by twilight, it softens into blue and shadow. The same mountain, yet always changing. It reminds us that we too are many selves. We shift, we fade, we brighten, and that's all right. Even stone changes shape beneath the sky. Some nights, when the moon rests upon a snowy peak, it feels as though the world itself is exhaling. In that breath, there is peace. The kind of peace that tells you you do not need to chase meaning. You only need to notice it. The mountains teach humility. They remind us that no matter how far we climb, the sky will always be higher. That no matter how strong we become, we are still small. And that smallness is beautiful. To stand before something vast and eternal is to remember that we belong to something larger, to a rhythm that began long before us and will continue long after. That thought could make one feel insignificant, but strangely, it does the opposite. It makes us feel connected, because to be small is not to be unimportant. It is to be part of the great breathing pattern of life. Every drop of rain that touches a mountain becomes a stream, then a river, then the sea, and perhaps one day, a cloud returning home. We are not so different. We, too, return to the same feelings, the same lessons, each time seeing them anew. The mountain also teaches silence, not the empty kind, but the kind filled with presence, a silence that hums softly with meaning. The silence between the wind's sighs, between one breath and the next. If you sit quietly enough, you begin to hear the language of still things, the way snow settles, the way a hawk's shadow glides, the way light pools and spills across stone. Each one, a gentle reminder that peace is not found by running toward it, but by standing still long enough to notice that it's already here. And in that stillness, something inside us begins to shift. The noise of the world fades, the need to prove or perform melts away, and what's left is the simplest truth, that we are enough just as we are. The mountain does not try to be beautiful, yet it is. It does not try to be strong, yet it stands unbroken. Maybe that's the greatest lesson of all, that we do not need to strive to be worthy of peace. We simply need to let it find us. So, tonight, as you listen, let the rhythm of your breath become like the rhythm of the mountain, slow, steady, anchored in quiet strength. Imagine yourself resting at its base, the air cool and clean, at the sky, a soft indigo dome overhead. A single star flickers to life, then another and another, until the whole night hums with gentle light. You are safe here. The mountain is watching over you, ancient and kind. It does not ask anything of you. It only invites you to rest. Let your thoughts drift like clouds, and your worries dissolve into the horizon. The mountain will hold them for you, transforming them into calm. In its silence, you find reflection. In its stillness, you find peace. And in its shadow, you find yourself whole, small, and infinite all at once. Imagine now that you are standing on the slope of a quiet mountain. The air is thin and soft, touched with the scent of pine and stone. The light has faded into that hushed, silver-blue hour between day and night, when everything seems to hold its breath. You take a step, and the world gives a slow echo. The sound of gravel rolling down the path, the whisper of a small breeze brushing past your ear. Somewhere far below, a river glimmers faintly, winding like a thread of glass. And above you, the first stars begin to appear shy, trembling alive. In this moment, you feel it, the deep rhythm of the earth slowing down. The same rhythm that mountains have always known. The rhythm that tells the forest to rest, that tells the clouds to drift slower, that tells the heart to loosen its hold. Mountains have a way of teaching stillness. They do not rush toward tomorrow, nor do they cling to what has passed. They simply are vast, patient, unmoved by the ticking of time. When the wind curls through their valleys, when snow melts into quiet streams, when sunlight breaks against their peaks, they listen always without resistance. Perhaps that is what peace truly means. Not the absence of motion, but the harmony of every small motion blending into one vast calm. You sit upon a rock, and the stone is cool beneath your hands. For a while, you let your breathing match the mountains. Slow, steady, ancient. The worries that once crowded your thoughts begin to dissolve, one by one, like mist rising from the valley at dawn. You realize that peace does not come from running away from noise, but from hearing the silence that has always been beneath it. The silence that hums inside every stone, that moves through the roots of trees, that drifts through the open air between stars. High above, an eagle glides, its wings outstretched, motionless but full of grace. It does not flap, it does not force. It simply moves where the wind carries it. That too is the secret of mountains. They know how to yield to what is, and in that surrender, they become eternal. Let your mind drift as the eagle does. Let your thoughts wander like clouds brushing against distant peaks. Let them pass slowly, softly, without the need to hold them. You remember faintly how the mountain began, as fire, as upheaval, as chaos. And yet, after all the storms and fractures, it stands now in quiet majesty. That is its lesson, that even from turmoil, peace can rise, as long as time and patience are allowed to do their work. Now, imagine that you are walking downward, following a narrow trail back toward the world below. The moonlight guides you a thin, silver line on the path. Every step feels slower, lighter. The air thickens with the scent of moss and earth. Somewhere, an owl calls a deep, distant note that ripples through the dark. The sound doesn't startle you, it soothes you, because it belongs here. A single voice inside the mountain's eternal song. And as you listen, you realize the mountain's peace is not separate from the world's noise. It includes it. It wraps it gently, the way snow covers stone, not to erase, but to soften. You can feel that softness now spreading through you, through the spaces behind your eyes, down the curve of your shoulders, into your chest, your hands, your breath. Every part of you becomes a quiet slope, a still valley, a resting stone. The stars shimmer above. And for a brief, perfect instant, it feels as if the mountain is breathing with you, as if all of nature has exhaled, and everything is exactly as it should be. And now, let go a little more. Let your mind float beyond the ridge, into the vastness where sky and stone become one. You are no longer climbing, nor descending. You are drifting, as mountains do through time, as clouds do across endless blue. And somewhere, deep within that drifting, you find the quiet truth the mountains have always whispered, that peace is not a place you reach, but a presence you remember. A presence that has been waiting patiently at the center of everything, including you. So breathe and stay here a while. The night is long, and the mountain will keep its watch. The night deepens, and the mountain stands still. No longer a shape, no longer a thing of stone, but a presence. Something ancient and endlessly patient. All the winds that once danced along its ridges have quieted now. The moon lays her light upon its shoulders, soft as a hand on a sleeping child. And for the first time tonight, we are not learning anymore. We are simply listening. Mountains have a way of teaching us without words. They show us that stillness is not the absence of motion. It is the harmony beneath all motion. Even as rivers run, clouds drift, trees sway, the mountain remains steady, not resisting, not controlling, just being. Maybe that's what peace really means. to stay grounded while the world moves around you, to let storms come and go without losing your shape, to be silent but alive. Take a slow breath in and imagine you're standing at the base of that mountain again. You can feel the cool air, the scent of pine, the faint sound of a stream trickling nearby. Every inhale feels like the mountain breathing with you. Every exhale like the world sighing in relief. In that quiet, you can almost hear the heartbeat of the earth itself. A rhythm so slow, so deep, it feels eternal. It doesn't rush. It doesn't falter. It simply continues. And maybe tonight, you don't need to climb higher, or learn more, or reach any peak. You only need to rest here, in this stillness you've found. The mountain isn't asking you to conquer it. It's asking you to remember that you are part of it. Each thought, like a drifting cloud. Each breath, like the breeze at dawn. Each heartbeat, like a footstep on ancient stone. All of it, held together in silence. Somewhere far above, the first light of morning begins to whisper against the horizon. It paints the mountain's edge in soft gold and silver. The night slowly loosens its hold. But the calm stays. Let that calm move through you now. Let it fill your chest, your hands, your thoughts. You've walked through the stories of mountains, through their birth, their mysteries, their quiet wisdom. And now, you've reached the gentlest part of all, the end where words fade and only peace remains. So, close your eyes and rest in the quiet that the mountains keep. You are safe here. You are home. And in this silence, the mountain breathes with you. Good night, traveler of the quiet earth. May your dreams be vast as valleys and calm as the snow that never hurries to fall. Until next time, sleep well beneath the watching peaks.